In this online poker tournament, I go below one big blind, and you are not going to believe what happens next. Now, some of these early hands I can skip through relatively quickly because I just wasn't getting a lot of hands, and I was also multi-tabling, playing a few other sit and goes on the side. So that's why I folded like 10, Jack 10, which to be fair is kind of a fold here anyway. Like probably want at least King 10 before you really consider continuing there. Again, A7 just not really good enough. But also in a little bit of news for the channel, we also just went over 100 subscribers. So thanks everybody for your support. And if you are new here, then yeah, definitely consider subscribing as well for more videos like this one. Yeah, King Queen here, I think offsuit, it works fine as just a call. I would definitely default into my head to kind of free bet bluff this and go like 10 big blinds and squeeze. That's a play I've done quite a bit in the past, and on table is soft, honestly, I probably could have, but not having any real information on the players, I felt that just a just calling it would be fine. That we'd have enough equity in this spot, and we do get an open ender. And when this guy tanks this note, he's going to donk out, which already tells you these guys aren't very good players. But given that this is a $25 buy-in, $10 knockout event on Ignition, you kind of, I guess, know that already. And the thought I had, do I raise here four-way? And because I think that this hand you could raise a decent chunk of the time, because when you sort of have the flush draw on the board, it means two of your outs are not clean. So a six outer kind of makes a good bluffing candidate, I think, four ways. And that's something I've kind of been incorporating a bit more into my game recently, working in some of these multi-way bluffs where it sort of makes sense, where players have clearly capped their ranges. But because the guy went over half pot, I figured, okay, a smaller bet I'd probably raise, but a bigger one, I'm just going to call. And, if I hit my card on the turn, obviously, we're having these times getting all the money against these fish with an SPR of just two. And if we don't, well, we can still potentially win the pot later. So what I do is I decide to check here, because I think that in a freeway pot, you would actually be checking back some flushes in this spot with the idea that, the button is then probably going to raise a fair bit. I don't know, there isn't really a solve for multi-way, like I could be wrong and maybe I'm tapping myself by checking. But I did feel it was a spot where I could legitimately like have some flushes I would check back, like some weaker flushes and maybe don't want to make the pot like all the way all in perhaps. Because you might just run into a better flush freeway in the falling range. But yeah, we end up having a check, and this kind of an interesting deuce where I decide just to go for an all in at this spot, which I think that it's a spot where I definitely have a hand that doesn't have showdown value. I think when this guy leads out on the flop and donks in, this guy here calls. Like when he donks in a two pink, like he always has at least a pair or a draw in that spot. And if you think about it, yeah, kind of the draw's got there on the turn with the flush, but he doesn't have that because he checked that on the turn and then the river. When the button calls, they're only calling with at least a pair in general. Like the odds of both of them just having a draw are very, very low. So it means that like the worst hand they could really have, even if they did have some draws, would be some ace highs or more realistically some garbage pairs, like under pairs, a seven, maybe a ten or a jack that's trying to pot control in extreme cases. But none of these hands like to see the jam. And so I think that if you have an ace high, it's fine to check back and take that little bit of showdown value. But I think hands weaker than a ace are just very good candidates just to shove. I think I would like this shove better if I did have a club in hand, but it does look a lot like, yeah, I just have some very strong flush that just wants to get paid, that's slow played on the turn. And I clearly believe that as well because they both folded. So, yeah, it's one of these plays, obviously very high variance. When it works, you look like a genius, and when it fails, you look like a complete idiot. And you wonder, why on earth you play poker, which had happened to me many times before in this long session today. But actually, in fact, the session was kind of short in the last few ones, but I digress a bit. But yeah, with that, we now become one of the bigger chip stacks, which is quite useful in these kind of formats because it is a knockout. You get $10 for every player that you knock out, meaning that being the covering stack is a pretty significant advantage. As it happened, though, I was pretty card dead. Just playing like very tight here. And yeah, when this guy raised to 2.2, this guy had only raised like one hand previously out of 13 hands. And so I figured, okay, he's probably not raising here with King Jack because if he's a nit, he's just folding that in that spot. And when this guy calls, I think the King Queen is just a fold. Again, like with the other case, you could argue potentially for free bet bluff, squeezing it as a bluff. It makes a decent hand in that respect to fold out a bunch of weak ace, a bunch of ace X, and some pocket pairs. But it does feel like just not the right time to do it. I felt so I did decide to just fold here. Now moving on to some other hands where you're not really going to play through so much the hands of other players. Like there was time in the past where I would do that, where I'd sort of, talk about the different player tendencies. But yeah, we kind of get to see that quite a bit already with the hands that I played, as it were. So I think it's not really the ideal use of time. And also, yeah, when this sort of a player who's raised 3x. I've noticed that when people raise 3x, it's usually just ace king plus is what I've generally observed with these size and sit and goes. Like basically even pre-flop they give away the strength of their hand by whether they bet 2x, 2.5x, 3x, more than 3x. They're just very transparent. And so with my hand basically just being a pure set mine, it just becomes a fold. We're not getting the right SPR to even consider a call. But even if it were a very deep stack, I still would probably fold the freeze there anyway. Because say if it's 200 big blinds deep, still there's quite a bit of risk going up in a set over set situation when it's like that multi-way. But in any case, yeah, we can skip ahead past hands where I was kind of card dead. I remember this one was a really rough one actually, where yeah, I decided to just go all in. I mean, I'll admit that this time I took a little bit of a different approach. Some of the past ones I had just been kind of like just raising not all in. But I felt that it's a hand where if I raise and I get jammed on, I kind of have to call, but I also kind of hate it. So I felt like this is the case. It just makes sense just to rip it all in, and because these guys also often like to gamble, like they'll often just call with these sort of, like suited broadways or even offsuit broadways or garbage ace X. They tend to just call way too wide. So I think in that case, jamming can actually be more effective in going 2x. I mean, there are still merits to going like 2x or 2.1x because you do get potential to outplay them post flop because they're just absolutely terrible poker players without exception here. But because this basically is a rake trap, like with 10% rake, like it's almost in theory, like you shouldn't really be able to beat the rake that much, but the players are so bad that it's actually kind of easy. I think this hand is one where if I had 8-7 with like some sort of backdoor, like 8-7 with a heart, I think this would be a very good raising candidate. But here we just don't have enough, so we just fold. Yeah, just not a good enough backdoor there. Yeah, this one we clearly folded. Get queen jack in this one. And yeah, here I again just go for this jam to go, okay, if I was in the button, I would jam anyway. This guy's almost always been raising when he's entered. I know at the time when he had aces in a previous hand, he did min raise that under the gun. So he's not limping aces most likely. So I just jam and we do just take it down. And yeah, now we have pretty decent stack. I think we're at about fifth place out of 16 players or something at this point. Yeah, King 10 obviously no good against, especially at 3x raise, but even 2x raise, we would still fold. And yeah, technically we shouldn't raise here. Like with the stack being this short, we actually should probably just fold in this spot. But I do decide to raise with the idea that I can call the jam from the really short stack. If someone else jams, I can just fold. But I saw that nobody had been basically free betting in this spot. Like literally no one had free bet on this whole table so far. I thought if nobody's free betting, I can just basically, just kind of go for it here. When he checks, I just felt that, yeah, he's probably not going to check back many flushes, these players. Being very soft, just going to be generally going to be flush playing their stuff. Because let's say if the board comes like with a 6 or a 3 or a 10, they'll be terrified that, their flush is no good, so we'll tend to fast play it. And so I felt there's a hand where, okay, it's not a spot where I really need to bet big. I can even bet quite small with being a paired board, and it's going to still get him to fold out a lot of the overcards, and that is indeed what happens here. So that was kind of a fun one. But I mean, even if let's say he has like a diamond and he calls, like the hand's still not over. Like I could still, fire again on the river when it's not a fourth diamond. So in any case, yeah, this one we'll just skip ahead a little bit. I'm guessing I folded. Yeah, the guy raised too big. Yeah, we can skip ahead here. Okay, this one was, yeah, kind of a painful one, but you'll see what I mean soon enough. So basically with jacks, yeah, I decide to just not go all in. I mean, it's a little bit of an exploit, yeah, if you're sort of min raising, let's say, the top hands and jamming the rest, then yeah, it means your min raise is going to keep folding. But then you also can min raise a bunch of hands that are like barely good enough to raise, like say jack eight offsuit, say 6-4 suited. You can sort of min raise those hands, just try to steal with the intention of folding to a free bet if they're just hardly ever free betting. So you can kind of mix it up in that way. This guy does jam over the two calls. Obviously, we play it out, and unfortunately for us, he does have the ace queen, which yeah is pretty painful, and we do go down to a very very short stack at this point. And almost if the poker gods want to sort of show their sense of humor, we get ace queen on the very next hand. This guy gives us a protection raise, I guess, but yeah, we kind of get a good spot where, yeah, obviously the guy was trying to go for my bounty as such. But to be fair, he's probably jamming ace-9 off anyway. But yeah, we have the better hand and it does hold up. Very lucky that the queen hits, otherwise if that 6 there and there's no queen, it just becomes a chop. But yeah, that was a lucky one for us. So we might not have a big stack, but we are still in the event. And it was tens. I think it's just a very clear jam. These guys are going to be hunting for the bounty when you're short stack. Just going to get called from all kinds of junk. And yeah, this guy does call. Unfortunately for us, he has queens, which do hold. So yeah, now we're down to, well, even less than I thought. I thought I was at zero point 0.8 big blinds, but I'm actually at 0.17 big blinds, which is just, yeah, absolutely sick. And now, to make matters worse, we're now in a five-way pot with the Philhelmuth hand of Queen 4 offsuit. If you're enjoying this video so far, do make sure to leave a like and also do, well, I already said before to consider subscribing, but yeah, do leave a like if you're enjoying the video. So yeah, we'll just play it out because, and yeah, this guy ended up jamming, which probably ended up being a good thing. It's kind of near the protection, but yeah, he ends up turning two pair, but then I hit the freeze, so like I get the, yeah, this little tiny pot, and now I'm like at 0.83. I think what happened is like it just was so painful for me, this whole thing, that just the being at like that tiny stack was just erased from my memory. But yeah, we go 1.83. These guys are obviously both hunting for my bounty of $10. Um, but yeah, as it happens, we have ace 10. These guys just check it down, which is a good sign for us. But yeah, our ace high actually holds. So yeah, by some fluke, we are still in the event, and we actually have 2.5 big blinds. So there you go. I think here you're just going to be jamming almost any two cards. Like not literally, but very close to any two cards here. So Queen 9 off, the amateur's favorite hand, is obviously going to qualify. Guy calls for a weaker queen hunting the bounty, but would you look at that? We're now suddenly at, well, we were at 5 big blinds, now we're at 4. So we're still really kind of just hanging on like just by a whisker. Yeah, I mean, with the 8-6 suit, it's probably one of the weakest hands that we would jam. Like, if it was 8-5 suit, I'd probably just fold. I mean, maybe I'm just justifying it just because I was tilted, but I do think that even in a bout, you do have a little bit of fold equity, and you know, if you call, you're definitely still live against virtually the whole calling range. So I don't think it's the worst choice. And yeah, we kind of get very lucky because this guy had aces, and we, yeah, just crack aces just like that. So, because I was really bemoaning my luck, and I see two eights go, okay, maybe I can't complain so much about losing the flip with, jacks against ace queen after seeing how all this played out. Okay, let's skip past the hands that are not so interesting. Um, yeah, so this guy goes all in. Obviously, we have a good enough hand, and we don't want this guy to get in there. So, we do end up getting the guys. Actually, no, we don't get his bounty because he ends up winning that one with Jack 8 offsuit. But okay, he's jamming any two cards there at that point. Just get out of the way there. Yeah, the king's 7 off. Think on, yeah, I do end up folding it. I mean, the board definitely entered my head to jam here, but I just think it's not quite good enough. Probably need like King 8 or King 9 offsuit to kind of, I think, jam in this spot with this stack configuration. I mean, I need to put in ICMIs to know for sure, but yeah, I think that's the case. We can skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, we're in the big blind. Yeah, we see if we can win another flip, and this time we do, getting the king. So, yeah, still a little bit of a, actually, it wasn't that much of a sweat when a king comes, but yeah, we do end up picking up a bounty, and is that the second bounty we picked up or the first? I already kind of lost track at this point. But I do know that I did pick up, yeah, some bounties, which I mean, I think, even with the title, you probably have guessed like what's going to happen with this event, but yeah, it still can be fun to, to enjoy the journey and learn a few things here and there about poker along the way. You also just kind of get a bit of a blueprint of how to beat these tournaments in general. Honestly, like it's just about, not putting your fort, like let's say your high level fort press on crosses on him, whereas they're at level 1, so we only need to go at level 2 to beat them. And level 2 is okay, Jam looks like, an ace king that just wants to get the money in, try get called by a weak ace. And they do both folds, yeah, just like that. We just picked up 3.5 big blinds because these guys are limping with all kinds of garbage. They said a very naughty word there, but yeah, decided not to. And yeah, we have some all in. Yeah, this flip. Don't know why I showed that one, but yeah, now we're starting to get some antis. That's why we're seeing those numbers come up at the start. So yeah, let's just run through it again. Yeah, I mean, there's very clear jam, of course, with any ace X here. Pretty much any Broadway actually going to jam. We end up all in. Very luckily for us, we managed to think a 9. So yeah, we got very, very lucky this tournament. I mean, that's obviously a very big part of it in a way that you do have to kind of win a lot of all-ins to win in this sort of format, unless you just, double up very early or like triple up early because they're just so bad. Which does happen sometimes. The blinds do go up every like 7 minutes or something. So, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you just have to run good. And yeah, this one pretty standard jam does get through. I mean, sevens you could consider min raising and calling a jam, but I think, yeah, probably I'd rather do that with maybe I'd probably feel more kind of like eights, nines plus would be the min raise call range. But probably you could put sevens in there, it wouldn't matter too much. Yeah, this ace 10 jam is kind of an interesting one. I mean, these guys are very, very gambly, so it probably is the right play here. But there are definitely tables where, yeah, you're probably better off just min raising and folding to a jam, like if they never free bet, which is kind of the case here. But I do think you get called by enough worse aces and just random broadways like king 10, queen 10, jack 10 suited, that it does, I think, just makes sense to jam and just sort of get called by some hands that dominate you. And it's kind of another example, like Queen Jack's probably like the worst hand I would raise here. So it doesn't really make sense to jam it, but with a raise, you can just take down the blinds. And yeah, with that, we're at the final table now, I believe. Yeah, we are at the final table. And now I'm actually the big stack in this spot. So that means I can really apply a lot of ICM pressure here, which is always fun. This guy ends up limping. We jam because, well, that's just what you're meant to do. But then this guy ends up calling. I'm just like, okay, what on earth is this guy, calling with in a way? Turns out he had overlimp ace king, so that already tells you how terrible these players are. Because we ran like God before, it means that, well, it means that we still, yeah, still are in the tournament with this smallish stack. Also, just so you know, for like the ICM notes, this was a top four paying event, so top four paid, they're still getting 10 for any bounty. And yeah, this is kind of a weird hand, I think, but yeah, we end up just jamming. This guy ends up calling, which makes absolutely zero sense. Like clearly both of us are going to be very strong, and yeah, the guy ended up having like ace jack. Actually, to be fair, ace jack. Yeah, I mean, it's probably like the worst hand you call in that spot in all fairness, ace jack offsuit. Ace and off, I think, would just be a fold probably, but not that really stay like the spot so much where like it's a raise and then a jam, but it's kind of like a free bet pot in that respect. With the bounties, yeah, like yeah, it's suited, but we have the kings, and that kind of, makes up almost for, having that hand where the guy limped ace king, and, we ran into it with ace queen, which must have happened like 50 times already in the session today. But yeah, as it happened, yeah, ended up still being in a spot where we're second in chips. Yeah, we're still second in chips, actually in a pretty good spot, and it's quite nice this guy is to our right, because it means we can just fold over his raise very, very tight. Again, we won kind of good, and like I said before, I think sevens and worse probably fit better as jams, and these sort of higher pairs that you can just call if they free bet jam, they just work better as non all into my experience. And like I said, you kind of then balance that by sort of min raising like the bottom of your range with the intention of just folding to a jam. Yeah, this one's kind of an instant. Like I am actually the covering stack, so I think that you can just jam quite wide in theory, just apply a lot of ICM pressure. And these low pocket pairs, these ace-X blockers, like the weaker offsuit aces, yeah, just really good candidates for like the all-in that spot. Just really puts him in a very rough spot there. Yeah, with this guy, I was considering, do I play with a king seven suited? And I just thought, nah, it's not worth it with the bounties, because if I go in here and I lose, I'm not going to be the biggest stack necessarily anymore. So I just felt that the stack preservation aspect kind of outweighed the bounty aspect, and turns out this guy hit a freeze. So we don't want to be results oriented, but yeah, it's kind of a case where at best you're flipping, and in reality, yeah, it's going to be a very rough spot. I mean, if we go back here, I mean, I guess I could jam here if I want to, because then this guy would probably have to fold in theory, but in practice, he's probably calling with a freeze, and then we just end up like being in an absolutely horrible position. Whereas in this spot, we basically are already in the money, so allows us to free up our play a bit more. And because this guy took a whole bunch of small stacks out for us, we just in a very clear second place where we can just apply massive pressure to the short stacks. Because this guy to my right basically was not raising a single hand. Like we saw him literally overlimp ace king, meaning that if he free bets, I just have a very easy fold with almost 100% of hands. Because he's basically only going to be, free betting or raising kings plus in general. Because when the guy raises, I mean, I could jam and just not have to play post flop, being out of position. But I also felt that 10-9 of only hands does connect fairly well in general, and yeah, we just end up flopping literally the nuts. So obviously running very good here. The guy calls, and yeah, thankfully the 9 does come on the river, or it would have been someone screaming in back of my head, everybody loves to chop. And I would have been trying to beat the crap out of him and then realize, okay, I can't get into my own head. This one, yeah, was a bit of a weird one. I don't know why I folded king six. I probably misclicked or something is probably the case. But yeah, that was yeah a mistake. But oh well, is what it is. Maybe I thought I was in the button or something. I clearly hallucinated. Oh, I know what happened. It's because there was a break, and basically what happened was on that break, I kind of forgot about the tournament because I was used to the times where the break kind of resumes at like, on the 0-0 right at the start of the hour. And then I sort of like looked like just thinking, okay, it's going to start soon. I saw that two hands already played, so that's why these two hands folded. It's because yeah, was basically not here for the event, which is obviously not ideal. I mean, it does mean I kind of lost my chip lead in a sense, but okay, not the. Fortunately, it wasn't too costly for me as such. I really lost a few big blinds from that. So we jam here because he can still call us with worse hands, but he does fold. I mean, in practice, maybe they're only calling better, but it's hard to say. I mean, it's very player dependent. Like I've seen people who just fold anything that's not ace x plus to a jam, which is a lot of the hyper turbo guys. And I've also seen people who just like fold like any sort of Broadway whatsoever, or even just like random like suited hands. So we really get a bit of a mix. But yeah, that one was kind of a nice one. We sort of took it down with an in position C bet. I mean, 9-5 suited. It's not a great hand, but I mean, you do get some better hands to fold, and yeah, we ended up getting very lucky and hitting a straight against a dominated hand. So that was, again, running very, very good, but now we're getting to the spot which I really love, which is where we get heads up against a player who has very little heads up experience, especially compared to me. I think it's very easy just to kind of outplay him, and it's actually even a little bit deeper as well. Actually, in this spot, I also could just check a decent amount of the time. Like against Solverland, I'm normally meant to check this hand, but I just felt this guy is just so bad and it's heads up. I probably should fire all my top pairs. That was kind of a heads up adjustment I made. But I think on the turn here, we just meant to check when the nuts kind of change because they just have, I think, a lot more suited hands than we do in this spot. And yeah, here we just go for the value here, just going for a pot size, hoping to get paid by, some one pair hand because he's a bit of a station. As evidenced fact, he never raises, and yeah, we do end up getting it through with our two pair, which makes it maybe he had a better ace or some random, 8-9 or something. It's hard to say. But yeah, basically with that one, it means that we now have a pretty big chip lead. And then we get to the final hand where I just think, okay, this guy's probably tilted after losing that hand to my rivet two pair, especially if he had a better ace X, it would very much tilt him. So again, we can just go for a small raise and just count him just to jam in tilt, which is kind of what happens where, yeah, you had King 9, which actually, to be fair, is a hand he should probably free bet jam in that spot. Actually, King 9 off is probably a better candidate. King 9 suit might work better as a flat with King 10 suit, possibly being the jam candidates from there. But as it happens, yeah, we do end up winning with the pocket tens. Always nice to flop a set for the tournament. And yeah, with that, I won this $25 tournament on Ignition, the $10 knockout event with 18 players. And yeah, as you can see, it was certainly a fun journey. And also, this is a tournament where even though the players are very soft, just historically, I've just run really, really bad. Like I remember I was checking my poker tracker stats for this tournament, and like I was just running it. I think I was running it, yeah, quite a bit of a loss actually. Like not as huge as I think, but I was running it a bit of a loss, I think, like just from like basically bubbling a lot of different events or like just kind of having a lot of run bad. It was kind of nice to finally have a tournament where I just like ran really, really well for the most part. Well, I ran really well after, losing the all-in flip at the early on. But yeah, definitely a fun experience and also got my online bankroll on Ignition to a new high. So that makes me very excited in general. Yeah, it just makes me more motivated to put in more volume. And yeah, I was sort of not really sure like what topic to kind of cover for today, but then I played this tournament, it kind of made the choice easy. But yeah, do let me know in the comments, yeah, what videos you'd like to see from this channel in the future. Whether you prefer more of these kind of like our hand history tournament reviews, the more like solver work, or just kind of talking about different kind of situations or themes. Let me know what appeals to you, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.